On the night of Beltane, villages once extinguished every fire, then waited in darkness for a new flame to rise. They said it was a night for blessings, but also for closed doors, strange music on the hills, and voices you should never answer in the dark.
At Uber, every single driver is required to pass a thorough background check before they can start driving. That means any prospective driver goes through a multi-step screening process, checking for any impaired driving or criminal offenses. But the checks don't stop there. Every year, every Uber driver is background checked again, so the person picking you up today meets the same standards as the day they started.
Hey, how's it going?
Yeah, good. Thanks.
Annual driver screenings from Uber. One more way Uber is putting safety at every turn. Learn more at uber.com/safety.
Big savings are in the air. Don't miss your chance at 15% cash back during Rakuten's Big Give Week. Shop and get rewarded at your favorite stores like Ulta, Blue Apron, KitchenAid, and hundreds more. So go ahead and refresh your closet, spruce up your home, book that trip, and much more. But 15% cash back is only from May 4th to 11th, so join now. Go to Rakuten.com or download the Rakuten app to join for free and start saving. That's RAKUTEN.
Hello, I'm Sarah, and this is a surprise bonus episode because it's May Day on Friday, May the 1st, and I wanted to do an episode all about May Day. So here we are. I'll get straight into it. Are you ready for the story? There are nights in the old calendar where the boundary between seasons feels thinner than usual. Moments when people once believed the world itself stood at a turning point. In villages, fields, and hilltops across parts of Britain and Europe. One such night arrived at the beginning of May. It was called Beltane. Today the name is often linked with flowers, dancing, ribbons, and modern pagan celebrations. But older traditions carried something more powerful beneath the surface. Beltane marked the passage from the dark half of the year into the light. It was a threshold festival, tied to fertility, livestock, protection, and the uncertain promise of summer. And threshold festivals are rarely gentle things. In Gaelic tradition, Beltane was observed on the night of April the 30th into May 1st, especially in parts of Scotland, Ireland, and the Isle of Man. It was one of the great seasonal markers of the year, paired against Samhain at the opposite end of the calendar. If Samhain opened the door to winter and the dead, Beltane welcomed growth, warmth, and life returning to the land. But that return had to be secured. Old accounts describe communities gathering wood for twin bonfires lit on hills or commons. In some places, every household fire was first extinguished, leaving cottages and farmhouses in sudden darkness, while people waited for a new sacred flame to be kindled by hand. Only then were hearths relit from the communal fire, carrying Beltane's blessings house to house. Cattle were driven between the flames or through the smoke as a blessing and protection against sickness, death, or malign forces. Ashes from the fires were scattered on fields to encourage growth. Hearth fires in homes might be extinguished and relit from the communal blaze, symbolically renewing the household for the coming season. Fire was not decoration, it was defence. Because, in older belief, the turning of the seasons was dangerous. Livestock were moving to summer pasture, crops were vulnerable, human health was uncertain. Mischief, illness, and unseen interference were thought more likely at these liminal moments, when the ordinary order of things shifted. And so people lit flames against the dark. There were also customs involving dew gathered at dawn on May morning, believed to preserve youth or beauty. Hawthorn branches were brought to doorways. Yellow flowers such as primrose or gorse were placed at thresholds and windows to ward off harmful influences. Wells were visited, offerings were left, songs were sung late into the night. Before sunrise, some went silently to wells or streams, believing the water could heal, bless, or reveal what waited ahead. But not every reflection was thought to be your own. Yet alongside blessing came warning. In some traditions, this was a night when the fair folk were especially active. Paths should be watched carefully. Lone travellers should avoid certain places. Doors and animals might be protected with rowan, ire, or fire. Water from particular streams was not to be taken after dark. Music heard in the distance was not always to be followed, because when summer returned, not everything returning with it was welcome. And standing at the centre of later May celebrations, tall above the village green, was another symbol whose meaning has long been debated: the maypole. The maypole is now one of the most familiar images of May Day. Bright ribbons, village greens, children circling in neat patterns, and a sense of harmless seasonal celebration. But the older history of the custom is stranger, rougher, and less innocent than the postcard version suggests. The earliest recorded maypole traditions in Britain go back at least to the medieval period, with one of the earliest references appearing in 14th century Wales. And over time, the custom spread widely through towns and villages, where a tall pole would be brought in, raised in public, decorated with greenery, flowers, flags, or garlands, and used as the centrepiece for May games and dancing. The National Trust notes that the later ribbon weaving dance, now so strongly associated with maypoles, became especially picturesque in more recent revivals. While earlier maypole dancing was often less formal and more openly tied to courtship, drinking, and spring mischief. Before the Victorians softened May Day into something suitable for children in white dresses and flower crowns, the maypole had a reputation for disorder. It was not simply a pole, it was a signal that ordinary rules had loosened. Young people went a-maying before dawn, gathering flowers and branches from woods and hedgerows, returning with greenery to dress doors, windows, halls, and churches. In some places, they stayed out all night. They came back with blossoms, songs, gossip, and sometimes scandals that older moralists were more than ready to condemn. That is part of why the maypole attracted such hatred from Puritan authorities. To them, May Day was not picturesque. It was pagan, unruly, sexual, drunken, and dangerous. In 1644, during the rule of Parliament, maypoles were banned as heathenish vanities, and the celebrations attached to them were treated as superstition and wickedness. But when the monarchy was restored in 1660, maypoles returned too, raised again as though the old merriment itself had survived underground and was waiting for permission to stand upright once more. There is something quietly powerful in that image. a pole cut down because people feared what it represented, then raised again when the world changed. By the 19th century, the maypole had become more respectable. The ribbons appeared, the dances were organised. The May Queen became a symbol of innocence and spring beauty, and the older roughness was slowly buried beneath nostalgia. The National Trust describes how the May Queen reached a particular height of popularity in the Victorian and Edwardian periods, when she was often shown as a young girl dressed in white and crowned with flowers, a figure of purity rather than the more chaotic seasonal ruler she may have once replaced. Old symbols do not lose all their meaning just because they are cleaned up. The maypole still stands at the centre of the circle, the dancers still move around it, the ribbons still wind and tighten, and beneath the music and colour is an older idea of binding, weaving, joining and calling summer into the land. That is what makes May Day interesting. It looks at light, but it belongs to a season that people once treated with caution. Because May Eve was not only a time for dancing, it was a time for keeping things out. If daylight on May Day belonged to flowers, music and celebration, the night before often belonged to something else entirely. Across parts of Scotland, Ireland, Wales and rural England, the eve of May was treated as a liminal night, one of those dangerous moments in the old year where ordinary protections were thought to weaken and unseen influences moved more freely. People did not simply celebrate, they prepared. Doors might be decorated with protective plants. Cattle were marked, blessed or smoked with fire. Thresholds were swept, charms renewed, and household fires carefully managed. In some places, no milk was left uncovered, and no animal was left unguarded, because witches, malicious neighbours, or wandering spirits were all thought capable of stealing fortune as easily as they might steal livestock. One of the strongest fears concerning milk and butter. In old rural belief, a neighbour could take the butter from another household through magic, draining luck from cows so that the milk would not churn or yield properly. A neighbour did not need to enter your land to ruin you. In village belief, they could stand in their own kitchen, whisper over a cord or churn stick, and draw the milk from your cows as surely as theft by hand. On Beltane, when livestock and dairy wealth mattered enormously, this threat was taken seriously enough that people used Rowan crosses, iron tongs, embers, salt, or spoken charms to guard the buyer. In a modern mind, it may sound quaint. To families living close to hunger, it was not quaint at all. Then there were the roads. Certain paths, crossroads, and fairy places were best avoided on May Eve. A lone traveller hearing music in the distance might be warned not to follow it. Lights seen moving over hills were not always to be approached. Rings in grass, ancient mounds, wells or thorn trees were treated carefully, especially after dark. Because this was said to be a night when the fair folk travelled, stories told of processions moving silently across fields, riders seen only in moonlight, or music heard where no musician stood. In some tales, Beltane was a dangerous night for infants, new mothers, and the beautiful. Those were the people the good folk were said to favour and sometimes steal. Those who interfered, mocked, or wandered too close might return confused, exhausted, or maybe not at all. In some Highland tales, a man returning home on Beltane Eve heard music across the hill and followed it, only to be found at dawn, miles away, shoes torn through, unable to remember where he had been. Even in places where belief had weakened, habits often remained. People still brought flowers indoors at the right time. They still avoided cutting certain trees. They still did not leave washing out overnight on May Eve, lest it draw ill luck. They still warned children not to answer voices calling from outside after dark. Many of these customs sound small. That is how old fears survive. Through ordinary behaviour, repeated long after the reason is half forgotten. And perhaps the strangest thing about Beltane is this. It was a festival of life, fertility and summer. Yet so many of its customs were defensive. Fire against harm, flowers against malice, iron against theft, closed doors against what might be walking past. Because people knew that when the world opens, it does not always open only to blessings. This year, Beltane arrives beneath a full moon, known traditionally as the flower moon. The May full moon takes its name from the sudden abundance of blossom and growth that appears across the northern hemisphere at this time of year. Fields green rapidly, hedgerows thicken, hawthorn begins to flower, and the landscape seems to shift almost overnight into fullness. It's an appropriate moon for Beltane. Both belong to fertility, growth, brightness, and the force of life returning after winter's restraint. Beltane marks the old seasonal threshold in summer, while the flower moon hangs above it as a symbol of the same promise. Light increasing, warmth settling in, and the earth moving into its most productive months. Yet full moons have rarely been viewed as gentle things in folklore. They illuminate what darkness usually hides. They lengthen shadows. They make familiar places appear altered. Roads, woods and fields, seen under moonlight, can feel less certain than they do by day. And many traditions across Europe associated the full moon with heightened emotion, restless sleep, strange dreams, wandering impulses, and the stirring of forces better left quiet. A full moon does not remove darkness, it only shows it differently. To have Beltane fall beneath the full moon gives the old festival an added charge. Fire below, moonlight above. Threshold night, made brighter than usual. In older ways of thinking, that combination would not have passed unnoticed. Bonfires lit on hillsides beneath a round white moon would have seemed powerful, perhaps fortunate, perhaps dangerous, depending on who was watching. Some would have seen blessing in it. Others would have considered it a night when magic, luck and mischief travelled further than normal. The name flower moon sounds soft, but flowers in folklore are often double-edged things. Hawthorn blooms were beautiful, yet in many places bringing them indoors was considered unlucky. Primroses could protect a doorway, but also mark the edge of fairy places. Blossoms represented life, also the briefness of life, beauty that appears suddenly and vanishes just as quickly. That tension suits Beltane perfectly. It is a festival of joy that remembers risk, a celebration of abundance born from older fears of scarcity, a bright night carrying old shadows beneath it. So if fires are lit this Beltane, and the flower moon rises clear above them, it's worth remembering that our ancestors might have looked at the same scene with wonder, gratitude, and caution in equal measure. Because some nights feel festive, and some nights feel awake. For a festival so old, Beltane has a curious habit of refusing to stay in the past. Walkers still talk of hearing music where no one stands. Not music from a nearby pub or distant car stereo. Faint strains carried across open ground late at night, seeming close enough to follow and yet never drawing nearer. Pipes, fiddles, singing, bells, sometimes no more than a rhythm, just beyond certainty. Those who go looking often find nothing at all. That matters because it appears again and again in older folklore. On Beltane Eve, people were warned not to follow music heard in lonely places. If there was no visible musicians, the tune was not meant for you. Some modern accounts tell of people taking walks on April the 30th or the first hours of May morning and losing time unexpectedly. A short path becomes several hours. A familiar route feels altered. Someone checks their phone and finds the night gone further than it should have. Then there are the fires. Across Scotland, Ireland and beyond, modern Beltane celebrations still take place. Some are public festivals, some private gatherings, some nothing more than a few friends lighting a careful fire in the garden. Yet people continue to describe seeing flames on distant hills, with no advertised event nearby, only to find darkness when they look again. Perhaps another gathering hidden by landscape, perhaps farm fires, perhaps imagination, or perhaps simply the old festival refusing to disappear. There are also repeated stories of animal behaviour that people find difficult to forget. Deer standing at the edge of the woodland, watching in complete silence. Foxes approaching unusually close to firelight before turning away. Birds falling suddenly quiet during ritual gatherings, then bursting back into sound once the fire is out. Some of the strangest modern accounts come from large public Beltane fire festivals, especially those inspired by older customs. Attendees speak of sensing figures standing beyond the crowd in the darkness. When approached, they are gone, or revealed to be no one at all. One old warning survives in several forms across folk memory. Do not look back after leaving the Beltane fire. The meaning changes depending on who tells it. Some say looking back invites bad luck for the summer ahead. Others say it allows wandering spirits to notice you. In darker tellings, some may follow if acknowledged. And then there is the simplest warning of all. If your name is called outside after dark on May Eve, do not answer immediately. Listen first. Make sure the voice belongs to somebody living. Because old customs rarely survive unless they once answered a real fear. And fears tied to darkness, distance, and uncertain voices are among the oldest we have. So if you walk out this Beltane beneath the flower moon, and music drifts across a hill where no one stands, or a fire flickers where no road leads, or your own name comes softly from the dark behind you, keep walking.
Big savings are in the air. Don't miss your chance at 15% cash back during Rakuten's Big Give Week. Shop and get rewarded at your favorite stores like Ulta, Blue Apron, KitchenAid, and hundreds more. So go ahead and refresh your closet, spruce up your home, book that trip, and much more. But 15% cash back is only from May 4th to 11th, so join now. Go to Rakuten.com or download the Rakuten app to join for free and start saving. That's RAKUTEN.
I hope you enjoyed this little bonus episode, and just be careful out there, okay? Take care, everyone. The stories told on the Whispering Woods are inspired by historical records, witness reports, and local folklore. While every effort is made to research and represent events accurately, some details, names, and locations may differ from official accounts or have been changed out of respect for those involved. These episodes are created for storytelling and entertainment purposes and should not be considered definitive fact or investigative journalism.